This is visual confirmation of a security disaster. Frontline Pulse has obtained exclusive details on the multi-agency dragnet the FBI is now calling Operation Iron Ledger, an intricate investigation into a military-grade inside job that breached one of the most secure armored transport hubs on the Eastern Seaboard. Federal agents from the FBI, joined by investigators from the Treasury Department's Office of Inspector General and the Port Authority Police, are on the scene at the Brink's Global Services facility in Newark, New Jersey, following a brazen, sophisticated heist that netting a staggering $47 million in Federal Reserve assets. This wasn't a smash and grab, it was a ghost operation. At 2:14 in the morning on April 9, 2026, the facility's sophisticated security grid didn't just fail, it was systematically neutralized. Inside the vault anteroom, dynamic motion sensors registered contact, then a second, then went dead. Not because movement stopped, but because the signal was cut with professional precision. 4 operatives, clad in black tactical gear and latex gloves, moved with the rehearsed efficiency of a team that had run this sequence dozens of times. Sources close to the investigation confirm the crew knew every blind spot in the camera matrix. They knew the guard rotation schedules to the second. They knew that for a window of exactly 90 seconds, the critical gap between one shift's last walkthrough and the next shift's first, the inner corridor of this massive cash and precious metals repository, would be completely unmonitored. This facility doesn't just hold money. It serves as a regional consolidation point for armored transport heading directly into the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's massive cash vault on Liberty Street in Lower Manhattan. On this specific night, the site held between $20 and $60 million in transit currency and bullion. The April 9th shipment was on the high end of that scale, $47 million, comprising $31 million in banded, Federal Reserve-grade cash and $16 million in solid gold bullion. The complexity of the breach is staggering. The crew didn't blow a safe. They didn't take hostages. They walked straight in using a cloned biometric palm print to defeat a scanner that Brink's internal documents boasted had never produced a false positive. They moved through a hidden service tunnel no outside contractor was supposed to know existed and vanished into the industrial grid of Linden, New Jersey, in less than 6 minutes. By the time law enforcement was formally notified, the stolen millions were already on the New Jersey Turnpike. What visual evidence was recovered? FBI tactical teams and crime scene technicians spent days processing the scene, but this crew was disciplined. Sources tell Frontline Pulse they left almost no trace materials, no tool marks, no biological samples, nothing but a critical 63-second gap in outer perimeter security footage. This was a sophisticated operation executed with paramilitary precision, but the investigation launched in the wake of the breach would reveal that the ultimate vulnerability wasn't technical, it was human. Investigators with Operation Iron Ledger are now focused on a central figure, an individual who spent 14 years earning the trust of everyone inside Brink's Global Services, earning the title of Regional Operations Supervisor, and spending that entire time building the blueprint for the perfect robbery. He cataloged every security angle, every sensor vulnerability, and then, after systematic reconnaissance, he engineered his own termination to launch the op. This breaking investigation is rapidly expanding. We are tracking reports of 3 suspects it's already in federal custody, and a multi-continent manhunt underway for remaining crew members and the technical specialist who made the breach possible. But the biggest question of all remains, where is the $31 million in Federal Reserve cash? As of this broadcast, not a single bill has been recovered. The mastermind at the center of Operation Iron Ledger was not an outside threat. He was the ultimate insider. His name is Marcus Dellinger, a 51-year-old former regional operations supervisor who had spent 14 years climbing the ranks inside Brink's Global Services. To his colleagues, Dellinger was the definition of corporate loyalty. He was the man responsible for scheduling vault access protocols, managing personnel oversight, and ensuring the absolute integrity of the Newark facility's layered security architecture. He knew the facility's crown jewel, a state-of-the-art biometric palm print scanner installed during a 2024 facility upgrade, better than anyone else on the payroll. This biometric scanner required a 3-dimensional impression of a registered user's palm geometry, synchronized to a living heat signature. It could not be fooled by a photograph, and it could not be bypassed by a latex glove. But Dellinger knew exactly what it could be fooled by. a high-fidelity silicone mold of a registered user's hand, paired with an artificial heat source. Dellinger's blueprint for the $47 million heist took at least 18 months of silent, methodical reconnaissance. While still wearing his company badge, he began systematically mapping every vulnerability in the logistics hub. He cataloged camera blind spots, tracked shift change intervals, mapped the unlisted Port Authority service tunnel, and noted the precise names on the biometric registry. For August 2025, Dellinger was terminated for a pattern of procedural violations, specifically for repeatedly granting informal vault access to maintenance personnel without completing dual authorization paperwork. To Brink's management, it looked like a veteran employee getting sloppy. In reality, it was a calculated exit strategy. Dellinger had deliberately engineered those violations to test security responses, gather final intelligence, and get himself fired once he possessed the complete blueprint for the robbery. What happened next is a terrifying demonstration of corporate vulnerability. When an employee of Dellinger's clearance level is terminated, standard operating protocol dictates their biometric data must be wiped from the scanner's registry within 48 hours. The removal order was issued by Brink's corporate security, and the system logged it as completed. But a post-breach IT forensic audit obtained by federal investigators revealed a critical failure. A software update applied to the scanner's firmware on August 29, 2025, exactly 24 hours after Dellinger's termination, corrupted the deletion queue. Marcus Dellinger's palm geometry remained live in the system, and someone on the outside knew it. Federal prosecutors allege that a now-terminate operations coordinator had requested that specific firmware update 3 weeks prior, showing unusually heavy system activity before Dellinger's firing. While that coordinator has not been formally charged, his name appears 11 times in the FBI's investigative summary, pointing to a deeply coordinated insider network. With the digital backdoor unlocked, Dellinger needed operational muscle to execute the physical breach. He didn't recruit street-level criminals. He partnered with a highly sophisticated network of Eastern European operatives with deep paramilitary backgrounds. Among the four-man crew that entered the facility at 2:14 a.m. were two former Special Forces operators, one from a Soviet bloc country and one from a Balkan state, who had transitioned into private security contracting. The third operative was Robert Kearney, a 44-year-old domestic asset and former detective with the Union County Sheriff's Office, who had resigned in 2018 amid internal affairs irregularities before entering private risk consulting. The fourth man was an unidentified technical specialist responsible for sourcing the silicone mold and executing the targeted 63-second signal interruption that blinded the outer perimeter cameras. The execution of the scheme was flawless. The crew didn't break down a single door, didn't trigger an active alarm, and didn't fire a weapon. Armed with the high-fidelity silicone mold of Dellinger's palm, the technical specialist walked up to the biometric scanner, beat the live heat signature protocol, and unlocked the vault anteroom. They bypassed 16 empty bullion crates to target 12 sealed titanium transport cases containing 12.4 metric tons of gold bullion, valued at $16 million. Simultaneously, they cleared out the transfer staging area, packing $31 million in banded Federal Reserve cash into their cargo van. They utilized a secret service tunnel built during a 2019 airport expansion, a route completely omitted from public site plans, to escape onto a Port Authority maintenance road. In less than 6 minutes, $47 million was moving down the New Jersey Turnpike inside an Isuzu cargo van registered to a front company named Bion Atlantic Logistics LLC, which had been incorporated 18 months prior by a Bulgarian national named Teodor Vanchev. The crew had achieved the perfect robbery, leaving federal law enforcement with zero biological trace evidence inside the vault, a clean crime scene, and a massive financial black hole. Building the case against the Iron Ledger crew required federal agencies to execute an incredibly aggressive, multi-jurisdictional forensic dragnet. Within 6 hours of the April 9th heist, the FBI Newark field office, cooperating with the Treasury Department's Office of Inspector General and the Secret Service Financial Crimes Unit, secured court orders to query the dense license plate reader network along the New Jersey Turnpike. Analysts filtered through 847 commercial and passenger vehicles, logged between 2 a.m. and 3:30 a.m., By cross-referencing vehicle ages, registration histories, and toll records, they isolated the 2021 Isuzu NPR cargo van registered to Bion Atlantic Logistics LLC. The van had paid cash at the toll plazas to avoid electronic transponder tracking, but the camera network recorded it exiting at interchange 13A in Linden, disappearing directly into the local industrial grid. Simultaneously, forensic technicians at the FBI laboratory achieved a major breakthrough from the single piece of physical evidence recovered at the scene. In the service tunnel, 40 feet from the Brink's egress door, a crime scene technician had recovered a single discarded cigarette butt wedged tightly at the base of a utility conduit. Document examiners analyzed the butt's paper construction and filter composition, determining the brand was Marlboro Gold, but not the domestic American variety. The burn pattern and paper density were structurally consistent with cigarettes manufactured exclusively for distribution in Eastern Europe, specifically the Balkans. DNA extraction units isolated a full male genetic profile from the paper wrapper. While a query through CODIS yielded no matches, the forensic data perfectly synchronized with the license plate trail. Federal investigators tracing Bion Atlantic Logistics discovered it had been incorporated 18 months prior by Teodor Vanchev and Grigor Stanchev, two Bulgarian nationals with extensive private military backgrounds in Europe. But the fastest breakthrough in Operation Iron Ledger came from tracing Marcus Dellinger's personal smartphone. While Dellinger used encrypted burners for operational communications and paid cash for his living expenses, he failed to deactivate his personal device. Regional camera networks revealed that a 2019 Audi A6 registered to Teodor Vanchev had been photographed inside a Sinatra Drive parking garage in Hoboken on 3 distinct occasions in March 2026. On every single occasion, Vanchev's vehicle was parked directly beside a gray Honda Accord registered to Marcus Dellinger. On April 19, federal surveillance teams established 24-hour coverage of Dellinger's Hudson Street apartment, placing a court-authorized pen register on his phone and initiating legal trash covers at his address. For 12 days, Dellinger practiced advanced counter-surveillance, varying his foot routes and doubling back on targets to detect tails. The breakthrough occurred on May 3, 2026. Surveillance logs showed Dellinger leaving his apartment on foot, boarding a New Jersey transit bus to Jersey City, and taking a PATH train to Newark Penn Station. Agents tracked him 12 blocks north to a diner on Bloomfield Avenue, where he sat in a corner booth for 82 minutes with Grigor Stanchev. Long lens cameras positioned across the street recorded Dellinger passing a thick folded envelope to Stanchev, who concealed it in his jacket. When they parted, Stanchev drove away in the exact 2021 Isuzu cargo van used in the robbery. With the vehicle and the inside man directly linked, a federal judge signed expanded electronic intercept and search warrants. By May 8, cell tower triangulation isolated a safe house on Adams Street in Hoboken, leased under a ghost identity. On May 10, a trash cover at the safe house recovered a plastic fragment consistent with a silicone casting mold, Bulgarian prepaid SIM packaging, and a cash receipt for Unit 47 at Safeguard Storage in Linden, New Jersey. On May 13, 2026, tactical teams from the FBI and Treasury OIG executed a federal search warrant at the Linden facility. Inside the 10x20 climate-controlled space, agents discovered 12 sealed titanium transport cases. A Brink's corporate representative called to the scene, verified the identification markings. 11 of the cases were securely locked. When opened under laboratory conditions, they were found to contain 12.4 metric tons of gold bullion, representing roughly 80% of the stolen $16 million in metal. The 12th case was open and empty. The remaining 20% of the gold was missing, and the $31 million in cash was entirely gone. Realizing the recovery of the gold would signal the crew that the conspiracy was compromised, federal agencies moved instantly to execute a coordinated takedown. On May 15th, all surveillance targets went completely dark. The safe house was abandoned. On May 16th, emergency federal warrants were broadcast across all points of entry. The first capture occurred on May 19th, when New Jersey State Police conducted a tactical traffic stop on the Garden State Parkway in Woodbridge, identifying the driver as Teodor Vanchev, who was carrying a fraudulent New York license. On May 22nd at 5:47 a.m., a 6-agent FBI arrest team breached Marcus Dellinger's Hoboken apartment, taking the inside man into custody in his bathrobe without resistance. 2 days later, on May 24th, federal agents located the domestic operative, former detective Robert Kearney, at a chain hotel in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. When tactical teams moved on his room, they seized a laptop, a burner phone utilizing a Montenegro country code, and a printed one-way itinerary to Europe scheduled to depart in just 31 hours. Kearney had been neutralized with only a day to spare. The takedown of the Iron Ledger network exposed a massive security vulnerability reaching far beyond a single armored car company. On June 30, 2026, a federal grand jury in the District of New Jersey returned a sweeping 12-count indictment charging Marcus Dellinger, Theodor Vanchev, and Robert Kearney with conspiracy to commit bank robbery. Bank robbery by force under Title 18, Section 2113, interstate transportation of stolen property, and multiple counts of wire fraud. Dellinger faces an additional 3 counts of federal computer fraud for exploiting the known software glitch that kept his palm print alive in the database. Under strict federal sentencing guidelines, the Section 2113 bank robbery counts carry up to 20 years per count, putting all 3 men facing effective life terms behind bars. On August 8, 2026, Marcus Dellinger entered a guilty plea to conspiracy and computer fraud charges, cutting a deal for a 15-year sentencing recommendation in exchange for full cooperation. But the fallout remains an open wound for federal law enforcement. While 80% of the gold bullion sits secured in an FBI evidence vault, $31 million in banded Federal Reserve cash is completely gone. Financial analysts with the Secret Service believe the cash was instantly scrubbed through a series of complex international wire transfers, routing through a Montenegrin holding company into unrecoverable shell accounts in Cyprus. Even more alarming is the international component of the crew that slipped completely through the dragnet. On May 17th, Customs and Border Protection discovered that Grigor Stanchev had boarded a flight from JFK to Frankfurt using a high-fidelity, legitimate Belgian passport issued to a dead man. The notification cleared 18 hours after the wheels left the tarmac. Stanchev vanished into the European Union, prompting Europol and Interpol to issue an emergency red notice, but his trail went entirely cold in the Balkans. The unidentified 4th man, the highly trained technical specialist who manufactured the silicone palm mold and blinded the Newark security grid, remains an absolute ghost. The DNA profile from the Marlboro Gold cigarette butt remains active in global databases, waiting for a match that may never come. For the financial sector, Operation Iron Ledger triggered an immediate national security crisis. A confidential post-event audit filed with the Treasury Department in July 2026 revealed that the exact firmware vulnerability exploited by Dellinger's crew exists across multiple armored transport hubs nationwide. While emergency remediation was ordered immediately, security analysts warn that documented flaws known to insiders remain the single greatest threat to the global supply chain. This wasn't a crime defeated by luck. It was a grueling forensic battle won by tracking a single dropped cigarette in a dark maintenance tunnel. 3 men are facing decades in federal